From Pocketnow.com, this is Pocketnow Weekly.
Hello, and welcome to episode 007 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow.com, where we discuss news and opinion from the world of mobile technology, smartphones, tablets, phablets, mobile devices of all sizes. I'm your host, Fisher, Michael Fisher, contributing editor at Pocketnow, and as always, I'm joined by our managing editor, Nodge, Anton D. Nodge. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Guys, listeners, greetings. Good to be here.
And editor-in-chief, Brandon Miniman. How are you?
Hi.
This is also the first podcast to feature, for the first time, all the way from Honduras, Multimedia Manager and awesome writer, Jaime Rivera. Good morning to you.
You didn't say it right. It's Rivera.
Know, Rivera.
It's Rivera. Jaime Rivera.
like he says it right, Nodge.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I'm never gonna get the intro right.
Yeah. But the whole James Bond intro was the one that was missing.
It was. I know.
I'm actually the only guy that's named James here. Translated.
Right. Oh, that's complete. Yeah, no, that is entirely true. Well, that was that was an awesome idea from Tony. We kind of wanted to bring in the podcast with different music this time, but there's some copyright issues surrounding the James Bond music. So anyway, whatever. Jaime, it's great to have you.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is the first time. I actually get to say something here that I always want to say in YouTube comments. And listeners to the podcast tend to be our kind of super fans, so they probably already know this. But we don't generally respond to YouTube comments. You guys do, actually. Tony and Jaime, when you guys have time, I think you do.
Yeah, only when a particular moron really steps on my nerves.
Yeah, and YouTube, as we all know, is like the bottomless pit of despair on the internet. But
yeah.
But anyway, I never have the time to comment. But every time I get a comment on one of my videos that Jaime has edited, where somebody says like "awesome editing, dude," or "mad video skills, bruh," or whatever. Thank you, listeners. But the man behind the magic and all that is Jaime. So for our fancy videos, the review videos, and the longer ones with all the Final Cut Pro effects and stuff, most of the time that's Jaime's magic at work. So publicly, Jaime, on the air, thank you for making us all look awesome.
Thanks for that. But again, it's a teamwork. It wouldn't be editing would be nothing if your footage wouldn't be beautiful.
Well, it's and I'm as always happy to be with the team here on the air. But before we leap in here, I want to ask you a question there, Jaime, if you're all right with that. When we had Joe Levi, the Android guy, on a couple weeks ago, we asked him how he sort of became the Android guy. And Jaime, I want to ask you, you're kind of a resident expert on all things iOS. So I wanted to ask how that came about. Like, if you could just briefly tell us what it is that, made iOS your personal platform of choice.
Well, I really wasn't a fan of the iPhone, and that actually took some time. I still am not really that much of a fan of the iPhone, to be honest with you. There are certain things that I don't like about it, and that's just because I come from a Windows mobile background where I'm used to having everything be instant compared to the iPhone where you have to refresh everything every time you multitask. But I actually started with a Mac. We actually began with this project years ago with Brandon. It was actually almost 2 years ago, where we came to this conference call once and we were talking about our video quality and how much we really wanted to boost our video quality. And it was funny because that was on a Friday, I think it was, or a Thursday. And then that Saturday, I just went to a store, and for some reason, out of the blue, I just bought a Mac. It just came to me that I needed
an expensive impulse purchase.
It sure is.
I know, but I went completely crazy. I was like, okay, why don't we just do it? And I just did it. And the next Monday, I was like, hey, I'm a Mac. I just bought one. Let's do the video thing. Let's see what we can do. And that's how, for those of you that have watched in the past, our first pilot was the iReview that we did. But it actually became more of like, okay, sure, I have a Mac now, so let's find devices to use with it. And let's just take advantage of the whole ecosystem. And let's just say I was actually the first one to move to a Mac. So that's how I got an iPhone, but it was only after a couple of months later.
Were you like the black sheep on the team when this happened?
Don't remind me. Everybody hated my guts for that. But, actually, it ended up being good because the investment ended up paying off for us. I think everybody enjoys our videos now. It's been a project in progress. Everybody's seen the evolution within the months. And then, it seems like the iPhone was like the next best thing, and it integrated fine with the computer. And a lot of things went well. I was just really disappointed with Microsoft ditching Windows Mobile. So this was my way of getting back on Microsoft, I guess.
I see. So it was more of a like a retributive move than and an integrative move with your Mac purchase.
Exactly.
That's funny because I think I came at it the exact opposite way, where I got the iPhone and then I got a Mac. I mean, it kind of brought me in that way. But I understand exactly, because when I snapped up my MacBook, that was when I started doing all the stuff with video that I do outside of Pocketnow. No, it's not scandalous, listeners. But all this other kind of stuff. So yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. Well, thank you. That's awesome. I'm glad that happened, Jaime, because I don't think we would necessarily have an iOS. Well, no, that's not true. Tony, you use an iPhone as your daily driver, as we've discussed.
Yes, and Jaime can testify to this. He and we have discussed this at length. He was like, "Come on, Tony, you have to try a Mac. You have to try an iPhone."
Yeah.
I said, "What? I don't want an iPhone." And this conversation went on for months and months until I finally gave in, and I'm happy that I did.
So you were the reason. Okay.
I think I've corrupted everybody. Ask Brandon.
Yeah, I got one too.
How long was it, Brandon, before you jailbroke your first iDevice?
It was actually pretty quickly after I got it, but then I quickly realized how ugly jailbreaking iOS devices can be. I did a whole series on sort of what you can do when you jailbreak your device, which is pretty much limitless. But the problem is that you quickly slow down your phone, and these widgets or these enhancements that you download quickly are unsupported, and they don't evolve, and there's no there's no like paradigm like there's an Android where there's a ROM where everything can be bug fixed in one package and everything's modular in iOS jailbreaking, or at least last time I checked. So it wasn't a pretty picture.
No, you're right. And probably the good thing about jailbreaking is it's so easy. I mean, compared to rooting Android, jailbreaking is just a walk in the park. I feel embarrassed at times because I have to be emailing Joe every time I want to root a phone. It's just, It's crazy. And then compared to the iPhone, it's just hit a button and that's it. And probably, like Brandon said, it's great to jailbreak, but once you do, what you can do with the phone has really become limited with the years. In the past, it made sense. There was no multitasking, but as Apple has polished the UI within the years, for me, it's pointless to jailbreak anymore. But it was at some point.
Well, that's crazy because, I mean, it seems to me that the ease of use that iOS sort of stands on, that is its foundation, translates even to using it in a manner not intended.
Indeed.
Whereas Android kind of like in its underpinnings is still a very, very they're both very complex platforms, but Android does less to hide that when you're tweaking it. Which is interesting. Yeah. I think the last time that I did anything like at a root level with Android was when I put Android on the Veer or something. So maybe I need to get back into that.
No comment on that.
I'm bringing the Veer to Berlin so Tony can actually handle a WebOS device.
Really?
Yeah. I want to take a picture of you holding it, Tony, because I think it'll look just even more microscopic in your palm.
We'll see.
You haven't standed beside Tony. Tony's huge, man.
I know.
That phone's going to look like a frickin' pebble beside him.
A pebble.
Look like a Motorola Pebble? Hey.
Yeah.
He's going to accidentally crush it just by holding it with his natural grip.
I know.
Then I'll have an excuse to get a white one.
They don't make them anymore, Michael. Haven't you read the news?
One of my Twitter friends was giving one away the other day. He was like, I got to get rid of this white Veer. I will trade it for anything that's not a WebOS device. I'm like, oh, man, I got a ton of stuff. I got a busted Galaxy Nexus for you.
I was about to say.
Yeah. All right. Before we leap into the topic list here, Brandon, have you got something for your editor-in-chief spot here?
I want to do something potentially stupid, and it's
great.
it's really weird. So I was watching, Michael, your unboxing of the let me get this right.
Yeah.
The Sprint Motorola Photon Q 4G LTE.
Nice. Good work.
That's the entire name. It's 6 words.
Rat, Winnebago.
What's that?
Rat, fox, dog, Winnebago, woodpecker. What other name do they miss there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the abbreviated name. And I was thinking back to that. Kind of gave me a it brought me back to the Epic 4G, that one, which had also equally long names. And I just started to think about what the conversation was like inside Sprint when they were naming this thing. So I thought it would be kind of fun if, Michael, you and I did a little role playing. And again, this might not work out very well, but I want to do this for like 2 minutes where you are the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer of Sprint. And so you're sitting at your desk and you call me into your office. I'm some sort of underling. And you're like, Brandon, what should we call this thing? Motorola has this new phone and we want to figure it out. So anyway.
I love it. Listeners, this is legit improv because this is not something that was planned on the topic list. So awesome. I love this. Okay, cool. Yeah. Brandon, great to see you. Brandon from Motorola. Nice to see you. How you doing, brother?
Hi.
I work for Sprint. I talk like this. I don't know why. We got to name this. We got to name this new phone.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead. I want to name it. What? Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I think we're gonna have to go with a long name on this one because it's got a keyboard and the device becomes very long when you slide it out. I think it should be called something with the word professional and.
Yeah. I like it already. Yeah.
I like the letter Q. I had a dream last night. The letter Q.
You had a wonderful slab phone back in the day. It was called a Q. It was we got to bring that name in there. Yeah. But also this looks like a light particle. So we got to add that. We got to make this a photon as well. Yeah. We had the photon before it sold well. We got to make it another photon. Yes.
That's good. I was thinking that too. Photon.
Photon Q.
But don't forget this is a 4G phone. So we got to fit that in there somehow.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. You make a good point. It's not just a 4G phone. So what is it? What is it? A WiMAX phone there? What are you bringing me?
It's an LT. It's an LT phone. We have to let people know that it's LT, or they won't buy this thing.
We don't have that network turned on yet.
Oh, that's all right. Well,
all right.
It's expanding this year. It's going to be huge. We have to let people know.
All right, we'll put it all together. All right.
Okay.
All right. So let me go. Sprint. You go.
And we got to have Motorola in there, of course.
Sprint Motorola. All right.
Yep. And the light particle thing.
Yeah. Sprint Motorola Photon.
And then the keyboard part.
Q. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Sprint Motorola Photon Q.
And then the high speed part.
WiMAX.
Yeah. We were going 4G.
4G. All right. 4G. Sprint Motorola Q. Yeah. Good.
And then the 4G qualifier on the end.
Right. Sprint Motorola Photon Q. 4G LTE.
WiMAX.
We're going to be
rich. I actually am embarrassed that I don't have some applause special effects here, but here goes, guys.
Damn, yeah. Let me join you. Shoot. I've actually got an echo on the room, so it'll sound great.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah, it sounds like there's a whole audience. Thank you very much, Brandon. That was a lot of fun.
That was fun.
Next week, it's the Epic 4G Touch.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine
break the podcast
when these guys reach the neutrons and the electrons? Man, this thing's going to be really out of control.
This thing is going to have a very high valence when it reaches store shelves.
Seriously, what compels them to name something so incredibly stupid?
I feel like it's this discussion that is just these guys trying to get as much of their own respective brands represented, as they can, because you've got Sprint pushing for 4G because it's a buzzword, but also they've got to fit LTE in there because they got to differentiate it from WiMAX, and Motorola's like, okay, yeah, but I mean, well, did Motorola call it the Photon? Was there a Photon version not for Sprint, like the original Photon?
Yes,
there was.
I believe I believe the Photon is a Sprint brand.
What was a Sprint phone? Yes.
Oh, I mean, I know it was a Sprint phone, but like, did they sell the Photon on other carriers, or did they call it the Photon when they sold it on other carriers? The first phone?
No. They've been calling it Photon on Sprint. It's the Droid on Verizon. It's the Atrix on AT&T. That's like the
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean, like these particular models, like the I've been wondering if the Photon, that original Motorola Photon 4G was sold on other carriers and whatever. I'm kind of haven't started doing the research on the review yet because I just got the device. for its, but I don't know. We'll talk about it in the full review. But I was happy to see, despite this long product name that is always kind of a laughable thing, I was kind of happy to see the Q branding brought back. It seems like Motorola, more than any other manufacturer, is kind of immersed in this nostalgic thing, where like they've brought back the Razr. They've even brought back the Razr variant in the Razr Max, which also was a Razr sub-brand back in the day. And now they're bringing the Q thing back. And I had a Motorola Q on Sprint when the original one was around, and I loved it.
It's funny you mention that because I too remember the Q. I use it as my daily driver for like 2 straight years.
Yeah.
But it never occurred to me, because they didn't put the Q before the Photon, that this has to do with that keyboard device of the past.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when you brought that up in our little role play, I was like, oh, that's kind of clever. I wonder if that's actually the case, and it obviously is. It's a keyboarded device,
right?
But they should have called it the Motorola Q Photon for GLTE.
I think that's what I tried to call it in my really sleepy unboxing when I got all the words messed up. I don't know. It makes me happy because, as I mentioned in a recent editorial, like I can be a pretty sentimental dude, so I like when brands are kind of resurrected. I don't know yet if it's worthy, if this device is worthy of the Q brand, because as many failures as that device had, as many times as it got product returns and like had to be service and repair exchanged when I was at Sprint, it was still such a wonderful device that I kept it for longer than any device up to that point. And that wasn't surpassed until my time with the Pre. So, So I don't know. It's a long product name. It's a pretty cool device so far. I'll tell you, I busted my butt to get it because, as I said in the unboxing, I ran after that FedEx truck like a madman. I mean, I was shouting at the top of my lungs like FedEx.
So we're doing the mission. So we're doing the James Bond thing today, and yesterday you were doing the Mission Impossible, I guess.
Right? Yeah.
Or do you say in both thing?
I'm in a suit, and I'm gradually, as I run, like pieces of my suit are coming off. I'm like throwing off my jacket and my tie.
It's already Transformers.
Yeah.
Man, you're willing to do whatever it takes, and that reminds me of when I was talking to Michael on Friday or Thursday about some things, and our first attempt didn't work because he didn't have reception where he was in Long Island, and so I wait like 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, I guess we'll have to reschedule the call, and he calls me back, and he's like, Brandon, I've driven 1.5 miles. I'm sitting at the bottom of a cell phone tower, and I was like, oh, is there a tumor growing in your head right now? And he was just willing to do it. It's pretty funny.
It's and I wrote that editorial while I was on Long Island about not having coverage anywhere and stuff, and it was just really nice to have intimate knowledge of my hometown's cell sites because there are so few of them, you can't help but notice them. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for the role play, Brandon. It's very nice to be terrified before 10 a.m. Let's jump in because we have Jaime on the air. I want to change up the order a little bit and do iOS first.
Great.
Yeah, and that is also because you hear the Long Island coming up because the Apple is now, depending on how you do your math, and I want to bring this up in a second, but Apple is potentially now the most valuable company in history. Which is a fascinating thing to say. I want to talk about the details in a second, but what? This is madness, right? Jaime, you wrote this piece. Can you just give us just a 10,000-foot view on this?
10,000-foot view.
Wait! Before Jaime does that, the finance major here should really quickly specify what that means, most valuable company in the world.
Yeah, please, Brandon.
That means that their market capitalization, which is the number of outstanding shares times the share price, is the highest that any other company has ever been, which means that investors think that if another firm were to buy Apple, they would need to pay around the market capitalization price, which is right now about $630 billion. So that's what it means when it is said that Apple is the most valuable company in the world. Anyway, Jaime, continue.
Can somebody translate that to plain English?
Really? That was pretty.
I'm no good with numbers. I'm good with words. I'm an attorney at law, so.
Tony, if you wanted to buy Apple today, you would have to find $630 billion.
Oh, that's not a problem.
I know,
The
I've got
question is,
that.
do I want to buy Apple or not?
All right.
Probably the most amazing thing about this is the fact that, well, think about it. It's a technology company. I mean, in the past, the highest market cap company was ExxonMobil, but currently it's at 406 billion. It's actually a difference of almost 230 billion between one company and the other. And if you think of it, Microsoft was the company that had that title almost 12, 13 years ago at 618 billion back then. And it's just interesting, just to give you an idea, the difference between Microsoft back then and now is Microsoft's current marketing cap is 258 billion compared to Apple's, let me see here, 629. So just think about it. I mean, if Microsoft would have kept their cool for the last decade that they've lost, in my opinion, they would currently be at $800 and something billion using the inflation and everything. And it's just to imagine. I mean, Apple was worth $7 10 years ago. $7.
$7 a share. That's crazy.
Yeah. And they are currently worth $671 a share. That's amazing. And think about it. I mean, just think about how many products are being launched by Apple in comparison to Microsoft. The amount of risk involved in the products that Apple brings to the market, hardware and everything, investment, is so broader than compared to Microsoft, where all they do is software. And there's really not much to lose. It's only brainstorming happening there. So I think it's really amazing how a company can come from complete dirt to complete success out of just a couple of products being well focused. I think it's amazing.
It's kind of inspirational because what Apple is at its core is ideas, and so that is a nice feeling, because if you've got good ideas, and of course if you're willing to execute and able to execute, you can create a great company.
Indeed, and just think about it. I mean, it's a company that started in a garage. I mean, how would you feel if you thought that the project that you're doing right now would be worth $600 billion in the future? Just think about it.
He'd invent the time machine.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's really interesting to see the flip side of this, too, because another company started in the garage in almost the same neighborhood, I think, and it was HP. And,
right.
Which was kind of on top of its game for a very long time, and now is, not at all. And the prospects don't really look good for the future. So it's fascinating to see two kind of divergent examples of that starting from a garage, place, and the ups and downs. And I think Apple needs to probably, not at this point. Obviously, there's no danger right now that is terribly evident, but they really cannot afford to rest on their laurels, which I think they've maybe been doing on the software side a little bit, but that's maybe not an opinion you share.
Just to give you go ahead. Just to give you an idea, HP is now worth $40 billion compared to Apple. It's like amazing. And this is just to give you an idea. I mean, I think that probably one of the most important things about Apple is their counterculture. It's funny because they're turning into Big Brother, but they're being really smart about it because Microsoft has become just this big blob white elephant. They look like a government. They're so slow in acting. And they're always with this wait-and-see mentality that's just made them so slow and sluggish that they haven't been able to innovate. And it's like they don't really know what they're doing, but everything that you do that's good, they'll just copy. And that's not the Microsoft that I remember from 10 years ago, sadly. And
I don't know. Is that true relating to their? I don't think that's true relating to Windows Phone. I think Metro is, the freshest thing I've seen on the market in a long time.
Well, just to give you an idea, I mean, I think they had a good product with Windows Mobile. And out of the blue, they saw that Apple was being successful with something else, and what they did was revamp Windows Phone into becoming a closed ecosystem, just like iOS. I mean, right. Windows Mobile was like the counter product. It was like the device you could do everything with, which is currently Android, sadly. And I say sadly because Android's a great product, but it's Windows Mobile was just special. It was different. It wasn't perfect at all. It was really sluggish in many points. But if any of you remember Pocket PC 2002 or Windows Mobile 2003, it was just so good. It was so fast. It was so unique. Sadly, it was stuck in RAM, so it didn't have persistent storage. It had to evolve to become a smartphone, but it was great at its time. And I just miss those days, really, I do.
I understand completely what it feels like to miss some old times, and I've carried Windows mobile devices back in the day, and it was cool. It was just I think that Microsoft needed to evolve to. I don't know if it needed to adopt the closed ecosystem approach that Apple did, but I certainly think that it could not have. Windows Mobile had reached its point of its innovation limit, right? I don't think they could have gone any further with Windows Mobile. Do you?
I think that they made a couple of tough choices to bring persistent storage. They slowed down the operating system just too much. Mm-hmm. They could have gone further if they were a little smarter. But again, going back to the topic, I feel that Apple's doing something really smart. They're behaving like a startup. And this is what big companies are not doing. I mean, if there was this book that I found from the Steve Jobs biography that's called The Innovator's Dilemma. And it's the fact that these companies, there are so many good examples of companies that are extremely successful. They hire the best talent, but they become so bureaucratic that they don't innovate.
And they think they can repeat what they did in the past to become successful.
Exactly. You see it with Motorola now. That's pretty much succumbed to Google. And it's just happening so much. Companies, they're focused on being these corporate giants where CEOs are business administrators, and they're not really technology geeks. They don't really understand their products. They're just out there to make money and to make investors happy. And that's really the mistake that other companies have made. Mm-hmm.
And then you have the opposite situation at like RIM, where the guy, one of the two co-CEOs, was like the guy who designed the product,
exactly.
and was so married to it that he kind of couldn't see the forest for the trees when it started aging, inelegantly. So
you're making a good point there. Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
There's a as with most things, the real road to success and truth lies in the gray area. But that's for philosophy. I do want to make a point though that I think it was TechCrunch that posted an article yesterday where it was like pointing out that none of these stories about Apple being the largest company in the world take into account inflation. And Jaime, you did make mention of this in your post.
Yeah. Microsoft would be worth $800 and something billion right now if they would have been smart about it.
Right, and TechCrunch was pointing out that the historic winner for the highest values in 1967 would have been IBM. Which translates to $1.3 trillion in today's dollars. So that's something. I feel like that's none of that diminishes the significance of Apple's accomplishment here. But I did want to throw it in there because it's easy to forget about IBM and its role as in creating our current computing culture and landscape. So I just wanted to throw it out there, give them some love to Big Blue. At the
IBM successful man. You remember that song?
Yeah. Let's keep going on the Apple thing here. There's Tony. What did you say just now? You are attorney at law, Anton Dinaji?
I'm actually not attorney at law. I just finished law school.
Yes, that's right.
So that was
I liked it
on my part.
I still liked it though. It's nice. Please tell us what's happening here. Tony posted a legal roundup just today with an Apple-Samsung settlement talk falling through, Motorola filing for an iPhone ban in the United States. Tony, hit us with some knowledge here. What's happening?
Well, the judge, Lucy Coe, if I say this right, had, I think it was back in May, another tryout. Apple and Samsung were ordered for a settlement talk on May 21, 22, and just as this settlement talk, that one failed. And I think at this point, neither Apple nor Samsung wants to settle because Jaime will understand this, and so will some other listeners. It's all about the cojones, If anyone of Apple or Samsung give up, they will be losing in the eye of the market, of their users, and so on. So neither of them wants to settle. Samsung as well as Apple, they want to win this because they need a win to put out there on their front page or on the front pages of every newspaper that they are better and that they have won this lawsuit, regardless of who wins. So which is normal.
I still remember when Brandon unboxed the Galaxy S2, and he's like, "Man, this looks so much like an iPhone."
I don't remember that.
You did. And I find it funny. I mean, I was a big fan of the Motorola Samsung the Blackjack 2. You remember that phone?
That was an excellent misspeak there.
I like the original Blackjack better than the Blackjack 2. They messed that up. They made it all shiny and sticky. And
I like the Motorola Q better than all of them because it was the same phone, just it happened first.
Indeed,
the Q had a better keyboard.
But the point is, I mean, think about how much Samsung's design changed after the iPhone. I mean, I feel I'm not saying that Samsung's design is not really cool. I love it. If there is one thing that I enjoy, and this has to do with your Galaxy Nexus after the buzz, is how great the Galaxy Nexus feels in hand.
Oh yeah.
There's this thing about jumbo phones lately that's just, my God, my pinky finger is just going crazy trying to hold the phone and trying to type on it, and I've got big hands. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's just this thing about Samsung design that I really enjoy. But the problem is, you can't avoid the fact that the icons just frickin' look like an iPhone, whether you like it or not. That Android was moving vertically for their app tray, and then Samsung just went horizontally like the iPhone. Mm-hmm. There's just so many things going on there that, it doesn't really matter who wins. I feel that the point being is, we as users have been really benefited by this. Whether Apple wins or Samsung wins, it doesn't really matter. Technology has evolved into better products. I mean, if we compared Samsung products before the iPhone and after, there's a big, big difference. And, probably the only thing that upsets me about what's going on is, if everybody remembers when Google was buying Motorola Mobility, their first order of business was, we're not going to be using Motorola for their patents. We're not going to be using Motorola for their patents. And then everybody was mad because Google wasn't doing anything with this whole Samsung trial. And now we do see that Google is doing something. They're using Motorola with their pens. They invented the cell phone. They invented the cell phone. So, hey, I mean, they're using their pens now to get back at Apple. That's what's happening now.
And that's good. And I feel like it was a good strategic move for them. I think it's true that they didn't buy Motorola just for the patents, because obviously they're planning some hardware stuff, and we'll get to that in a listener mail component. But I don't want to let Samsung go without kind of saying that, they are a strange paradox in this kind of legally exploitable way where Samsung does copy a lot of design, I think. I think they copy a lot of hardware design, and I don't think that's an accident, and I think that's closely related to a cultural thing. But Samsung also comes in and they'll release a product like the Galaxy S3 where they'll just have 25 new innovations that no one's ever thought of before. And sure, maybe 19 of them are just like, this is ridiculous, I'll never use it, but it's kind of creepy in a futuristic way. But, Samsung is full of innovation, and I think that they wouldn't be embroiled in this mess if they weren't so bold about some of their just more blatant ripoffs.
And let's be honest about this.
Like the Blackjack. We just talked about the Blackjack. Like the Blackjack ripped off the Q. It did. Whatever. Drop some hate comments. It's fine. It's true.
It's true. But hey, what's the biggest copycat in the world? Apple. I mean, they didn't have their operating system was. Come on, man. The Mac operating system came from Xerox PARC.
Sure.
They didn't. Surely they invented the design of the original laptop. True, that's fine. They invented the Newton. True, that's fine. But a lot of things, like, they didn't invent the tablet computer. It was a full Bill Gates concept for Microsoft. So they haven't invented a lot of the stuff that they're doing. They didn't invent the smartphone. They didn't invent the touchscreen-only device. They didn't invent finger interaction either. They didn't invent capacitive touch either. They've been doing a lot of copying themselves. They've just been really smart about patenting everything that they do.
And as some commenters pointed out, I was not crazy, they did not invent multi-touch.
No.
So, no, you obviously, and the kind of cliched thing to say about Apple is which is true, is they don't do stuff first, they do it better, and that tends to be the truth. But I think the issue that I have sometimes is that then other companies will come in behind them, and this is the way the market works, and it's like, oh, okay, well, Apple's making a lot of noise, we're going to make exactly the same noise. But, whatever. So this is, all this stuff factors into why we're kind of embroiled in the legalese stuff, and we'll continue reporting on that. But while we have Jaime still on the hook, I still want to ask you about, and everyone, about a widescreen iPhone. Jaime had a cool editorial where he said,
I've been getting a lot of hate now because of that.
I bet you have, man. Well, it's great because you introduced this idea that's not very popular.
I think people have forgotten how the iPhone 4S was born.
Well, let me set it up for you. The headline is, listeners, if you haven't read it, why a widescreen iPhone doesn't make sense. So, hit it, Jaime.
Okay, the problem is people don't remember this time of year last year. Everything was filled with the iPhone 5. The iPhone 5's coming, and it's going to be teardrop, and it's going to be all curved in the back, and it's going to look like this iPod Touch with a cellular radio, and boom, we've got the iPhone 4S. I think that Apple learned a lot from the Gizmodo debacle. They ended up figuring out a way to throw prototypes on the road to make people just go crazy thinking that's the next iPhone. And what we're going to be getting is the iPhone 4G LTE, probably, or something like that. I'm not saying that's going to be the case. I just find it very unlikely that Apple will adopt the 16:9 aspect ratio. And the reason being is, first of all, 16:9 is complicated. A lot of people I've seen use the iPhone with the keyboard in landscape mode. A lot of people just want a big keyboard. And the problem is when you do the 16:9 thing, and if you've done this in Android, you'll notice that the keyboard covers everything.
There's no room for content.
There's no room for content at the top. And Apple's all about the content. That's the thing. First of all, that's one thing. The second thing is, have any of you guys ever tried to watch a 4:3 movie on a 16:9 screen?
Wait. It should be the reverse, right? I mean, content's in 16:9, and when you have 4:3, you get black bars.
Are you talking about like old school TV, like standard definition stuff?
Well, that's the thing. A lot of the people, there's this case in marketing where you focus products on the people that are able to buy them. And currently the buying capital for the iPhone are people that watch movies in the 80s and 90s. And we are still, the problem is that a lot of these movies and series are stuck at 4:3 aspect ratio. You can't fix that. Mm-hmm. That's the way they were filmed. And while we are the people that are still able to buy the product the most, us that are in our 20s and 30s, the problem is that we will still be getting products that fit these case scenarios. So I think that's why 4:3 is not going to be abandoned that easily. If not, they would have done it with the iPad. Just think about it. The iPad is like the perfect device to consume movies. So why would you make it 4:3 if it wasn't because it's still important to embrace these people? And, it's easy for you to watch a 16:9 movie on a 4:3 screen. All you do is get black bars at the top and bottom. But when you try to do that backwards, the black bars on the left and right are just so big that it becomes cumbersome. I just don't think they're going to do it.
So you think they're just going to that they're just going to blow the screen up in all dimensions and keep it at 4:3? 4:3, rather?
My wishful thinking is that they'll figure out a way to get rid of as much as they can from the front of the panel and make the screen larger within the same size of the phone. I feel that they want to make one-handed usability better. They don't want to lose that paradigm. And I just don't see a long-screened iPhone. I don't know. I just don't. And if they do it, I'm not saying that they won't. I'm not saying that I wish I was wrong, and Brandon knows the way I am. When I say things, that doesn't mean that I wish I was wrong. I mean, I do want a longer-screen iPhone. I do want one, but it's it's just so anti-Apple. Apple's been really good at doing the complete opposite of what everybody else is doing. They moved away from the floppy disk when the CD didn't even allow you to burn anything on the iMac. They've done a couple of times. But I've never seen them do something.
Oh, party foul.
It's the other way. Against themselves. So I don't see that happening. Who knows? That's just my 2 cents.
Okay. What's it? Brandon, Tony? You guys got something to contribute there? Because I'm at a loss for this kind of screen talk.
Well, first of all, I look at a lot of content, and I think it's crazy to think, sorry, Jaime, that people care about 4:3 aspect ratio content. I mean, maybe if you're watching The Wonder Years on Netflix, which was filmed in the 80s, and
I definitely do all the time. Yes, go ahead.
Right. There's just not much I mean, maybe like 1%, 2% of the content out there is 4x3. I think 16:9 is a tremendous challenge because of the UI. And as Jaime points out, when you use a landscape keyboard, it just looks bad. Even if you have like a huge screen that's super high resolution, it doesn't matter because it's the same aspect. It's about aspect ratio. I mean, you can't make a keyboard that has these keys that are like 1 millimeter high or 2 millimeters high. I don't know. I sort of agree with Jaime that Apple will figure out a way to keep the 4x3, because then if they do 16:9, they're going to do the iPad in 16:9. And imagine a shape of a 16:9 10-inch iPad. It's going to be like it's going to be like a surfboard essentially.
Like a Motorola Zoom.
It's going to look like a Galaxy Tab 10.1. So I don't think Apple's going to go that route.
Maybe without the front-facing speakers that make the new 10.1 and the Note 10.1 so awesome. I don't know. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see on this. I would like to kind of dwell more on this topic, but we do kind of have to move on. We already talked about the Photon unboxing. There's a review coming up on that. While we're talking about Samsung, the Galaxy S3 Mini is rumored to join the Galaxy S2 Plus in this kind of like strange Samsung mid-range offering. While we're talking about sizes, I feel this is kind of a good segue because what is going on here? Tony, you haven't spoken in a while, and I think you wrote this article. So, like, is this Samsung kind of getting into mid-range sizing to flesh out its Galaxy offering, or what?
Samsung has a lot of phones. Samsung at any point has a truckload of phones on the market, and this is usually the reasoning I go with when I compare Apple towards Samsung. People say that Samsung is selling more phones than Apple. Of course, Samsung has 55 phones on the market. Apple has 2 or 3. But that aside, as I said in the article, there is the iPhone 5, which is coming up, or the new iPhone, or the iPhone 4GS, regardless of the name, in September, October. Now, the next flagship Samsung is not coming until next March, April, or May. So Samsung needs to build up the hype and come up with something. But the Galaxy S2 Plus was also rumored before MWC in Barcelona, and we expected to see that because we had a Galaxy S Plus. So I'm more inclined to believe that there might be a Galaxy S2 Plus, but there might not be an S3 Mini. I mean, just think about it. Why take something which is the flagship phone and put it in a smaller shelf and maybe strip off some of its raw specifications and still keep the brand, which is keeping in motion the phone? And so I don't think so.
If you do that, this is interesting. If you do that to the Galaxy S3, if you make it smaller, well, let's talk about this real quick. What makes the Galaxy S3 Samsung's flagship? What is it about it that makes it so high-end?
I mean, it's got the biggest display this side of the Note. That's 4.8.
It's got a big display, which a Mini can't have. What else?
It's got the fastest smartphone pretty much in the world, I think.
Okay, it's fast, which I guess the Mini could have if it was a little bit thick to accommodate the quad-core Exynos. What else? It's got some software stuff like S-Voice, which really isn't that interesting. It's got TouchWiz, which really isn't that interesting. So the only reason Samsung would make a Mini Galaxy S3 is to take that brand that now has lots of recognition and put it on an additional device and hopefully, increase sales. I mean, it's not like a typical scenario where you have a phone that has certain key characteristics and they make a mini version of it because they're taking all of those characteristics and just putting it into a different form factor. It wouldn't be like that with the Galaxy S3.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, probably over there in the United States, you don't see that much. But over here in third world countries, it's common for you to see the cheap iterations of whatever good product is out there. So, for example, here is like the Galaxy Ace. And I'm like, what's Ace about that thing? That thing is like the Galaxy Dud. It's like the Galaxy Terrible and the Galaxy BS.
That's why they gave it a stupid name like the Ace.
Yeah.
Well, Ace is not really bad if you think about combat and flight and stuff. But the point is, I mean, I would really, and this is my particular dream, I would really want another 4-inch phone, 4.3, 4-inch phone, with all the Galaxy S3 specifications. Yeah. I wish that we had a variant like that, and I was expecting that from the HTC One S, the S, not the X. And it turned out to have a less resolution screen, and And it just wasn't a great phone. I mean, it was a beautiful phone, but it wasn't a great phone. And I just wish that somebody would do that. I mean, not everybody wants a jumbo phone.
I've said this in like editorial after editorial where I'm like, why do we have to tie high-end performance exclusively to oversized devices?
It's so funny you guys are talking about this. The other day I was at Best Buy and I saw the Xperia Ion, which is it's still a large screen, 4.6 inch, but it had awesome hardware. And this is the first time this year I've felt Sony's 2012 hardware. And then I thought back to the Xperia S, which is among maybe 2 or 3 devices ever that have the 4.3 inch screen size with the 720p resolution. And as Jaime knows, that makes for a PPI higher than any other device on the market, about 343 PPI.
Yeah.
And there's just not... Yeah, the screen's insanely gorgeous, and there's just not many phones. It's like when you get to 4.3 inch or 4 inch, you got to have a low-res crappy screen, and it's ridiculous. They should bring it down to the smaller devices.
And and the total irony about that phone that I wrote in my review is it's got the most beautiful screen I've ever seen. I mean, I think the camera on that phone wasn't as good as the fact that the display was so great at portraying photographs that you really thought that the camera was great, but it was really just the display boosting it up.
I hate that. That happens all the time to me. I understand.
It happens all the time. But, the problem is you have this really gorgeous screen, and then they made the housing insanely big. And I'm like, why did you make this phone so big? You could have made a much smaller phone with this beautiful screen, and it would have been great. And they just didn't do it. I don't understand some people sometimes, but anyways, I mean, they've got these marketing numbers. I don't know who's feeding them up because, you've got these jumbo phones, and surely they do entail to us the male population. But then you go to a lot of places in the United States, and they're just filled with iPhones. So even if these people think that people want jumbo phones, the largest portion of the market just wants an iPhone. That's the problem.
Wow, that's sobering. It's like a sad observation for some reason.
It is, but just think about it. I mean, how many Android phones do you really see in the hands of people on the street? Well, compared to iPhones.
I don't know. You get into that kind of observation, and you're like, well, then where are you? You get into anecdotal territory, and you can kind of refute or reinforce whatever you want, right?
That's a good point. In fact, I think we've talked about this on the podcast.
We have,
how we never see these phones. I was at a concert 3 weeks ago, and I meant to talk about this, but I turned to the right, and there's a Galaxy S3. I turned to the left, there's a Galaxy Nexus. The guy that I came to the concert with, which I never met, was a friend of a friend, had an HTC One X. It was like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's like everyone here has the latest and greatest Android phones, and yet if I go out into the regular, if I go out into the public, there's none of that. It's like all iPhones.
Yeah, and it depends on where, because I do a lot of traveling, and I between Boston, New York, and Long Island, so I'll see different phones depending on where I am, and it's even more interesting to go out into the boonies where smartphones do not offer a great experience, so they're not very popular. You have some real cool opportunities to do some fun double takes at what people are carrying, because it's like, wow, that's a dumb phone. And it's not like a dumb phone from 2007. It's not like they've been lazy in upgrading. Like, you just bought a new dumb phone, because it's because that's what suits your needs, And so it's just crazy. I love people watching, and did we talk about this on the podcast? That commercial that was out. I don't know if it was a Best Buy commercial a couple of years ago, where the guy's out to dinner with his girlfriend, and he keeps looking and she thinks he's checking out other chicks, but he's checking out other people's phones. And she hits him on the head with a water pitcher or something like that and walks away. And
I thought I was the only guy that did that.
No, yeah, I think we all do it, right? And
we all do that.
And your date or whoever is and you're like, no, it's okay. I'm just checking out phones.
It's kind of that way with cars. Like, I'm out with my wife and I'm like, oh my gosh, that person. Like, this is right after the Galaxy S3 launch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that person's Galaxy S3. Do you know what that means? Just the same way we're walking down the street and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a Lamborghini Murcielago. You know what that is? And she's like, shut up, let's go.
the worst for me is when you see somebody else with the phone that you just bought. Like you just went to unlaunch day and you're like, I'm the first person that's going to have this phone, and I'm the only one who's got it. This is great. It's like 9 a.m, and like 2 hours later, it's like somebody else with that brand new phone is walking around. I'm like, no.
It's depressing.
No.
And it's changed a lot, because back in the day, like 4 years ago, I'd have the AT&T Tilt 2, and no one had a smartphone, and I could impress the hell out of people if I said, look, this thing can tell me where I am on a map, and they would be like, whoa. and now I literally cannot impress anyone with any phone that I have, because they all are pretty much the same. They all do the same thing. So I'm no longer cool around here.
No, yeah, the new impressing people game has turned to what apps you have and what your app can do, and then they can go buy one.
Yeah, now what we have to say is, look at how big my phone is.
Exactly. Oh, and speaking of which, the whole world is about to see the Optimus Vu. LG is bringing the Optimus Vu to everyone except America in September. Who's excited about that?
Tony, I think he was the one that used it at NWC.
I know.
There was this host beside Tony that was just making Tony's life unbearable.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Tony,
what was the deal, Tony?
Well, every time I started to record and to say something about the phone, he started showing off the specs on the huge loudspeaker and amplifier, and I had to do double, triple, quadruple takes and stuff like that. I'm no longer excited about the LG Optimus Vu, and I'm no longer excited about LG. And these are bold statements. I'm no longer excited about any company in this world, on this planet, who announces a phone in February and makes it available in September. No,
you don't like
I'm never going to buy that.
You don't like Microsoft anymore, man.
No, I'm an Apple guy now.
But Tony's made a valid point. I mean, first of all, talking about that Optimus Vu, I just feel like if I'm going to get hurt with that thing, I mean, it's got disgusting. The sharpest corners in the world. It's like, damn. You should have just replicated a piece of paper and just drew a phone in it and just published it as a phone. But, speaking of such, I mean, think about it. How much do you lose by taking so much time to release a phone? You could ask Microsoft that question, because they'll definitely have an answer. I mean, they announce things in January. They publish them in the fall. It's just terrible. Mm-hmm. It's just terrible. In this day and age, that's just a way to give competitors what to do and patent it before you do.
Particularly when it's not a product that people are really holding their breath for. It's like, I saw the View come out. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. This makes me think about phablets, and so let me write a piece about phablet, and I'll compare it to the Galaxy Note. And even back then, I was like, well, at least, I mean, the Note's a monster, but at least you can hold it. Like the View, and Tony, you can, disprove me on this, or no, excuse me, I think you and I agree. Like the View is very uncomfortable to hold because it looks very uncomfortable to hold. Yeah, so it's like...
Going back to a role-playing, Michael, I think the marketing head at LG was like, all right, take the Galaxy Note and make it impossible to hold with one hand, and we got a winner.
We got to sharpen up those corners. If I can't feel this thing brushing up against my palm, I don't want any part of it.
If I'm not going to get a blister, it just won't make sense. It won't sell. Let's just make it different. Let's make it edgy.
Zing.
See, they said that. They said, let's make it edgy, and someone took that literally.
Right, exactly. Well, all right. Well, we'll see. I mean, it's never coming to America. It's like the Pure View, which is available in America, but whatever. Nobody's going to adopt the View here. If somebody does, I feel like AT&T will in the States. If LG ever releases it here, I don't think it's going to move. And they'll probably do a View too, and it'll probably go down the same road. I would like to see LG do something impressive again.
LG's been losing a lot of money lately in their smartphone department. And, it's just funny because they build the IPS display for the iPad. All my televisions at home are LG. It's just they've got this really good technology for plasmas and LEDs. And they could make something really good if they just met, if the guys from the smartphone department met the guys at the, at the screen department, which is such an irony.
It's crazy when companies do that. Yeah, there are different branches of companies that perform very differently. Like Motorola has Motorola Mobility, but all their iDen phones were built by Motorola Solutions. And they could not have been more different. But LG used to be, back in the day, in the day of feature phones. I mean, LG had some really innovative stuff going on. I mean, they were responsible for the chocolate series was big on Verizon. What am I missing? They were really, really. Oh, they built the Voyager, right? Like the dumb phone answer to the iPhone on Verizon.
No, they build the product. That's all I can say.
The product.
I think the Prada was the first capacitive touchscreen display. I think it was.
Was it?
The original Prada was the first capacitive touchscreen display. I think it was.
Huh.
I think it was. Yeah. I'll do some research, but I believe that LG has done a lot of innovation when it comes to displays. It's incredible. I don't think even people remember that LG was actually called Gold Star like 20 years ago.
Lucky Gold Star.
Yeah, exactly. But, they've done some really good stuff. They just haven't figured out smartphones. And, it has nothing to do with the design. The design's actually good. Their software is just terrible. I mean, we were doing the Optimus 4X video, and the guy was just showing off the 4 cores. And he's like, look at this, and crash. Oops. And then crash, and then crash. I'm like, damn, the 4X crash is what this thing should be called. That's just the way it is. And it's funny how can you release a product that you don't really test? That's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
They make good washer and dryers, though. You gotta hand it to them.
Yeah. They look really funny. Yes, they look like boom boxes.
What I want to get off phones real quick before we hop into Windows Phone. We don't have the occasion to talk about non-phone Android devices very often, but Samsung is releasing another Galaxy player, which, listeners, if you're not familiar, is kind of their answer to the iPod Touch. Brandon wrote this news post. I wrote an editorial about front-firing speakers that references this thing. So it looks like a Galaxy S3 with speakers. With speakers on the front, it was like vertically oriented dual speakers, and I think it kind of looks cooler than the Galaxy S3 from the front in some ways. Maybe I'm weird. Yeah, well, it does. All right, so we're both weird. We're weird together. What's the story? Does anybody buy these things anymore? Even Apple is pricing the iPod Touch at ridiculous price points relative to a subsidized iPhone. So it's like, what? I don't understand. Who's buying these? This
is perfect in a situation where you got like a 8-year-old kid saying, Daddy, get me the Galaxy S3, get me the iPhone. And he's like, shut up, kid, take this phone. No, take this thing. It doesn't have a phone in it, so I don't have to worry about the damn data plan. And I think it makes sense in a lot of situations. It's kind of training wheels for, when kids are old enough or the parents are, rich enough to pay for smartphone plans for all of their kids.
They have to be rich enough to pay for the device. I mean, you're saying like the Galaxy Player and its ilk are like training wheel smartphones for rich people's kids.
Something very interesting is happening now, and just think about it. I mean, an 8 gigabyte iPod Touch costs the same as an 8 gigabyte Nexus 7. I think these products are gonna. I don't think that MP3 players are going away. I just feel that there will be a point where phablets will just end up becoming the next MP3 players, and not MP3 players, but they're trying to build these dedicated game players for kids to use. And I think that these are really going to be the substitutes for game consoles in the future. I think that's what's going to end up happening.
Brandon, I keep calling you and you're rejecting my calls.
I was wondering what the hell.
Brandon is the only person I know that can love smartphones but use landlines more than his smartphones to make phone calls.
I thought that was, I was confused as to what that sound was, and it took me a while to realize that it was a landline. It was a copper-based communications device.
Let me explain for a sec. Back in the day, I saw the Vonage commercial, and I'm like, this is a good idea. Turns out Vonage has a very, very good voice quality, and I don't know about you guys, but I kind of get tired of the holding cell phone to my face thing, and sometimes I just want a landline, and sometimes I leave it in the same room that I'm podcasting in, and sometimes it rings 2 times while I'm doing it.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know the phone number of my landline. I don't know it.
Yeah, I haven't owned. I've never had a landline of my own. The last landline phone I encountered on a regular basis was at my parents' house in 2001.
Was it a rotary?
Yes. Yeah, it had a hand crank, and you had to talk to Jenny to connect you.
I love Jenny. She's nice.
Go ahead.
But again, going back to the topic of what's going to happen with these MP3 players, I think that the concept is not having an MP3 player. They're trying to create this product that competes with game consoles, and that also allows you to do email, social networking whenever you're on Wi-Fi and stuff. But at some point, it's going to end up either converging into a phablet, or it's going to go away and move into the 7-inch tablet form factor. Or something's going to happen, but it's really going to make game consoles, the portable retrogrammable game consoles obsolete. And that's probably what I like the best about my Nexus 7. I've got my iPad filled with games, and to be honest with you, I never play them because the thing is just so big.
Yeah,
but then when
massive.
you do that with the Nexus 7, it just makes sense. And, well, you know, I have my son's iPod Touch with me right now. And playing a game with an iPod Touch is just too small. So if you can find like a sweet spot in the middle, you can end up with a really good game console. And as quad-core processors are evolving with the Tegra 3 and with everything that's coming, I think it's going to make sense in the future. It's not going to be really an MP3 player, but it could also do MP3, you know, just that.
I feel like gaming is probably the only salvation for this particular device. I do think MP3 players are going away completely. I don't think there will be a category left for those once every dumb phone becomes a smartphone, which is sort of inevitable, in my opinion. I don't know. I think the iPod Touch and its ilk are kind of going to disappear, and the gaming but not even Wi-Fi access is gonna save that, because when everyone has a smartphone, nobody's gonna need a phablet unless it is a smartphone, like a phablet with just Wi-Fi. Go ahead.
I know we got to move on, but I totally disagree. I mean, the cost of ownership for this thing is going to be like $200 lifetime. The cost for a similar device with cellular data is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars over a lifetime. And this provides every possible use case experience to someone who doesn't want to incur that thousands of dollars lifetime cost, just without the convenience of being able to do it anywhere. And it's a perfect device for so many different kinds of people. I use the example of kids, which I think is good, and it helps to develop brand loyalty for Samsung. But it's also good for, you know, the college kid, you know, who still doesn't want to have to pay for a data plan and wants to be able to use, you know, email on a mobile device and all of the apps and the communication tools and the internet while he's sitting in, you know, bed or whatever. So
okay, I get that completely, and I think in today's world you're completely right. I don't think that is the way the world is going to continue to be, though. I think smartphones will become, for most people, as essential as cell phones are today, as mobile devices are today in general. I think, you know, I think that kind of monthly cost for data plans is just going to become one of those things. Like 10 years ago, you know, you buy a cell phone and people are like, oh, well, you must be a very important person. You can afford to pay an extra $40 or $50 a month. Why don't you just use your home phone? And, you know, now obviously that world is completely unfathomable because everyone has a cell phone, and we all need to have cell phones if you want to be communicated with, basically.
And just think about it. It could go the other way. I mean, what if, you know, voice over LTE is something that is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And we've got devices like the iPad where you can just stick a SIM card in there and pay whenever you want to. You can pay for a day or pay for a month. Mm-hmm. And, you know, with voice over LTE being a reality and having applications taking advantage of that, like Skype, it could be the case where we are going to end up with devices that just have an LTE radio for data and can also do voice, but is not really a cell phone anymore.
Yeah. There's, looking at the future landscape, there's going to be a lot of interesting developments, as always. I think with all the Galaxy Player stuff, we've put Tony to sleep. So you're still alive over there, Tony?
Can you hear me snoring?
Yeah. Let's. I just want to briefly touch on one piece of Windows Phone news, which masquerades as two pieces in the lineup here. But basically, in this lull before the September 5th announcement. By the way, September 5th, there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen all at once. But there's some hardware pictured. Nokia, you know, we have another bezel picture. We've been talking about this for weeks. And we also have some details on the new Samsung Windows Phone 8 model. I don't know, guys. I don't even know if we need to really discuss this unless there's something really huge. But, you know, I feel like we're just in the speculation phase where it's like, how much more can we say? We just need more information here, which is going to come at this point from a last-minute leak or from a product announcement. I mean, we're all waiting on Nokia and Samsung Windows Phone 8 hardware, so... I mean,
I think a lot of people are waiting for like a Galaxy S3 variant for Windows Phone, and we ended up getting that with the Samsung. Which was it? The Focus
S.
The Focus S, which, to be honest with you, I really like that phone. I don't know. I don't know what to say about Windows Phone. Sorry, it's been a rough couple of years for them. And I know that Samsung and HTC are doing their best to support the platform, but sadly the platform's not taking off as it should. And I don't know. I do see Samsung doing it because obviously they just want to be everywhere. They've got Bada, they've got this, they've got that. They just want to be everywhere. And they want to wait and see and not have all their eggs in one basket. But it's just going to happen that way. Whereas opposed to Nokia, it's everything is pretty much being set on Windows Phone, which is it's still not taking off as it should. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I always get this hate mail about people thinking that I'm against Windows Phone, and I'm not against Windows Phone. I think I like it more than a lot of platforms. I hate the fact that I feel the same as many developers where they just wish to see the numbers before they actually invested in it. And that's really what's going on there.
Right.
And then, you know, as much as I love my Windows Phone devices, Microsoft just decided to make them obsolete with their Windows Phone 8 announcement. So it's like, will people really trust Windows Phone going forward? That's a really big question. I don't think it's going to be an answer that a lot of people are going to want to hear.
And we'll have to see once the landscape is shaken up by 8 when it arrives. But that kind of serves as a nice segue into our 2-minute sort of debate corner here. Because the future is very interesting. We don't know who's going to be on top in the days, weeks, and years to come. So when it comes to smartphone OEMs, I want to hear what you guys think about who the next Apple is going to be. That's about as simple as it gets. I want to confine this to mobile devices if we can. So, who would like to go first? Because I don't want to force this on anyone. I want to be gentle. I want to be a kind host to y'all.
Not everybody.
Everyone, not everyone at once.
Okay, let me start.
Yes.
I don't think that there will ever gonna be another company which will be like Apple. Samsung is trying hard and they have succeeded up until a point, but I don't think that there will be any company on this planet, or not at least in the near future, that will manage to generate that huge amount of buzz which is surrounded by I don't know, every product which Apple gets to the market, and with their policy of being available now or available today or pre-orders starting today. It's just, if they come up with the same iPhone like the iPhone 4 or the 4S or the 4S2, it will sell millions. And of course, Samsung, as I said, is doing a good job, but I don't think that they will manage to be the next Apple. So bottom line, Apple is Apple, and nobody in the near future will get close to it.
Okay.
I'll go next.
Please, Brandon.
I agree with the notion that no company will ever be like Apple, but I think Samsung is brilliant with their strategy, and it's going to pay off huge. They're hitting every angle of the market, every different device size. They're releasing devices quickly. They're strategically releasing devices to take the clout away from other device announcements. And they are marketing aggressively. Like, I see Galaxy S3 everywhere. I saw Galaxy S2 everywhere. And they're in it to win it. And they're kind of sharks. What's the word? They're kind of I don't know what the word is. They're kind of sharks, you know. They'll screw over people. They'll do whatever it takes to win. And I think they've earned their place as the top handset manufacturer, and they're gonna grow, and they're gonna mess up, of course. But it's impressive how they've done a lot right, and they've hit the market from every different aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. In my case in particular, I wish I could say HTC. It's just the weird thing. I wish I could say it, but the problem with HTC is, and I wrote this in an editorial a couple of weeks ago, is the fact that one thing I do love about Samsung products is that what they market, they deliver. Whether it's the best product in the world or not, it's really tough for you to stand and say, "Oh, this is the amazing camera, authentic sound," and it's not really that. And I think that what Apple does, a lot of people are like, "Man, Apple's marketing is just so beyond reality," and it's really not. I mean, the camera on the phone is really as good as they say. The video quality of the phone is really as good as they say. The UI is as reliable as they say. So I think that it comes down to which company is able to deliver on their promise and which company is able to grow beyond the promise. And that, I think Samsung is it. I think that Samsung is not going to be the next Apple. I think Samsung's going to be better than Apple at some point.
Ooh.
Wow.
Samsung's going to be the next Samsung.
Yeah, I think so. And listen, this by far is not me being a Samsung fanboy. I hate the quality of their hardware. I mean, the Galaxy Nexus. You broke your Galaxy Nexus last week.
Sure did.
I broke my Galaxy Nexus a month ago with just one fall. They do have things they need to improve, and then Samsung engineers can come up to me and be like, "Hey, phones are to make phone calls, not to drop them," and they have a point there. But still, I mean, there are a lot of things that should happen in the future. I think that Apple has taught one thing to companies, and it's the fact that you don't need corporate culture and you don't need these committees to be able to build lasting companies. What you need is to behave like a startup. And there are a lot of companies that are doing that. And, Samsung is doing the complete opposite, but they're being smart about delivering great quality products when it comes to their, to their offerings, not necessarily to their hardware quality. But again, I just feel that they are just going to create a separate category in their own that's going to be able to be better than Apple at some point.
That's nice. That is interesting. I did not consider it. I love my favorite part about your argument, Jaime, is I wish I could say it was HTC. And I do too. But
Me too.
I don't think it will be. But I really, really wish I could because
I'm a big fan of HTC products ever since the iPad that I bought initially in 2001. It was the most beautiful product that I've ever owned.
Yeah, I remember the privilege of my first bit of employment here at Pocketnow is that my first review got to be the 1X, which I just completely unexpectedly fell head over heels for. And, that's what really respawned my interest in HTC after, I think the last time they impressed me before that was with the original Touch, maybe. But yada.
I feel HTC has the potential. Their biggest problem is, again, I don't think they're focusing so much on software that they're not doing really great hardware, totally great. And
I don't know. That 1X is great to me.
Think of this. Okay, the problem with the 1X is it's a gorgeous device. It's beautifully designed, but it's designed to be beautiful, not easy to handle. That's the problem.
Well, Well, hold on. That's like a whole. We can't because I will talk about this for 20 minutes, and we just don't have the time. I want to. Here's the thing, Jaime. You may have listened last week. We didn't get the listener mail last week. We have a lot of kind of divergent opinions on listener mail. We're going to continue to do it for a while. We may not continue to do it based on the volume of stuff we get. I'm not really sure. We're going to talk about this going forward, but we're going to do it for now. I like doing it. When listeners write in, they bring in topics of discussion that ordinarily we wouldn't cover. So I've kind of boiled them down somewhat, and I want to get to a couple of the ones from last week. Just to let you know, a couple ones that were like essay length, I couldn't boil them down. So I really, we appreciate the input, listeners, but we just can't get to something that long on the air. Just to hit these real quick, guys, Remington Jackson is asking us.
Great name.
Isn't it a great name? That's kudos on your name, Remington Jackson.
Indeed.
My questions are in regards to rumors I have been hearing about multiple OEMs making Nexus products. Is it true? And if it is, who do you think the OEMs will be? Obviously Samsung and HTC, but who else?
Motorola, man. You
Absolutely.
The Atrix. I have the Atrix. They are the only ones that are doing the real soft key buttonhole thing. I mean, you could just see how Google is already influencing on Motorola.
Yep.
That's going to be the next Nexus device. I just wish they got rid of a lot. They're doing something smart. They're doing stock ICS with Motorola widgets. They got rid of Blur, which is really smart, but the problem is the UI is still not polished. It just feels sluggish, but I feel that's the next Nexus.
Yeah, I completely agree that I think Motorola is definitely up to bat on this one, and I think the acquisition of Motorola maybe has derailed maybe another HTC Nexus product, because unless I'm having a brain fart, they made the Nexus 1, right?
Want me to throw something at you? I think
desperately.
That Razer HD is actually going to be the next Nexus. It could be.
But it's I hope not, because it's going to be like the Atrix HD, possibly a bit thinner. And the Atrix HD is It's all right, I guess.
Yeah,
the Atrix feels great. It's just the UI needs more polishment.
Oh my God.
But I do feel that that's what's going to happen. Motorola is going to be their next Nexus provider. But it would be cool to have a 1X variant for stock Android. I mean,
Yes, it would.
I've said this before. You've all heard about this Microsoft Windows signature experience, where you can buy a computer, but it's really stock Windows on the computer. I wish Android would do that they would have all the OEM products that you could buy, but you could choose a signature product where you could get stock Android on it. That would be just a beautiful experience that everybody's waiting for, I think.
Yes, it would. It's that's actually not the that's in the Nexus vein, like with this sort of the Nexus aspiration of this signature experience. But that actually kind of goes in nicely to an email that we received from a guy named Thomas, who is asking our opinion on trading in his phone. He's getting his upgrade availability window soon from Sprint. He's an American. He currently has the iPhone 4S. Sprint is currently offering the Galaxy Nexus for free, he says, which I didn't know about, by the way. That's pretty wild. The Galaxy Nexus has always seemed pretty cool to me, and I love free phones. I've wanted one from launch day, but at the time it wasn't on Sprint. What are your thoughts on trading my iPhone in for the Galaxy Nexus? And
you already answered that on After the Buzz.
Oh my God!
How was it?
What did I say? Yeah.
Stay away from this phone.
Run away from this phone. Not because I want to be clear. Not because the device is a bad device. It is a wonderful device. And I even said this in the After the Buzz, Thomas. That was for the Verizon Galaxy Nexus, but it's the same thing. The Galaxy Nexus LTE version is a beautiful Android phone, and it will serve you so well if that's all that you want. But if you're looking for a Nexus experience and you're even thinking about looking at the Verizon or Sprint Galaxy Nexus, you should not be. You should be going to a GSM carrier with an HSPA Galaxy Nexus if that's what you want. At this point, I think, though, in August of 2012, thinking about any Nexus device at this point may be a little premature. I mean, we'll probably see another announcement in the next, 4 months, guys? 5 months?
Yeah, wait for the fall lineup.
Right.
But he really, his name's Alex?
Thomas. But
Yes.
close.
He really wants the free phone, and if that's extremely important to you, listen, you can if you've got the balls, you can root your Galaxy Nexus and put the cleanest, most sterile jelly bean ROM that exists out there on your phone. It'll take you about an hour, and that's it. You're done. So I think you can undo the shameful bloat that Sprint has put forth on that phone by just hacking a little bit. But if you don't want to do that, listen to these other guys.
That is a good point. Brandon is always here to remind us of the benefits of rooting and of custom ROMs. That is true. And that is a good point, especially if it's a free device, then it would be certainly worth your while, Thomas. So, finally, there's a question from ATB, J, a.k.a. Aeon Flux. Sir, you have a very long internet name. Hey, Pocketnow, I have a question concerning the growing trend of making smartphones with embedded batteries. I've spoken on this a little bit. Everyone hates my answer. I'm planning to buy a new phone, and the decision is between the 1X and the SGS3. Since I prefer HTC, I'm still not 100% sure because the embedded battery is, for me, seriously a downer. And basically, ATB Aeon Flux wants to know if he's being overly concerned or if it's a matter that devalues a smartphone. I will just go here. This is our last piece of listener mail for this podcast, so I will just say something, then you guys can chime in. I want to hear from Tony, too. I wrote an editorial that everyone disagreed with. I said we need to stop complaining about this. We need to embedded batteries, let manufacturers make cooler designs. And if you really need extra battery power, which we all do, you can carry around a spare charger instead of carrying around a spare battery. Yeah, it's a little more bulky, whatever. I don't know. Everyone hates my idea. Everyone loves carrying spare batteries in their wallet. Cool, whatever. For me, ATBJ, a.k.a. Aeon Flux, no, it's not a big impediment. If it were between those two devices, it would be a hard choice, but the embedded battery on the 1X would not be an impediment for me. That is where I stand. Gentlemen, have at it.
I'll tell you what, Android 4.0.4 that was just released for the One X does a very good job with battery life. It is far better than it used to be with the previous version of Sense. It all depends. I mean, I wrote an editorial last week about how I wish phones would not be sealed anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I had a choice, I would prefer the Galaxy S3 just because of the fact that you have the choice. You're not stuck with the fact that you have to charge the phone. Because it's not like you can carry a wall outlet with you. But it really depends on your usage. And my particular usage, it doesn't really matter. I could go for the One X or the Galaxy S3. I like Sense a lot better than the TouchWiz, sorry. But that said, it all narrows down to your choice. The problem with the One X is if you ever want to switch that battery in the future, it's pretty much impossible. The motherboard is split in two, and it's just a craze. It's crazy.
Right. I kind of agree with Michael. I mean, if you think about exactly what it takes to get a replaceable battery, you've got to go online and find it. It's usually about $50, and then you've got to keep it charged and in the right location, and that's a big pain. I mean, if you have a problem with battery life, you have a charger at work, which you probably got for $10. You have a charger in the car, you probably got for $15, and you have a charger at home. And hopefully you don't need to obsessively charge because the One X has reasonably good battery life. But I agree that people need to stop complaining about the batteries being sealed in. I think it's unfounded for most people when you consider the pros and the cons of carrying a battery versus just charging it a little bit more.
And if Anton Dinaja is still with us?
I agree with Michael. I don't care if it's removable or not, but it will die, and you will get frustrated. So regardless of which one you choose, it will die.
So regardless of whether it's replaceable or not, you argue that it's not critical?
That's not a deciding factor for me.
Right.
Another problem to go on the other side, another problem with not being able to take the battery out is what if your device freezes? And the worst case scenario, and this has happened to me a few times, you cannot soft reset it by the power button, so you have to let it die. You have to let it sit there for like 5 hours with the screen blaring on, which makes you cry, and then it just turns off eventually. And that's
you have the long 7-second press of the power button.
Yeah, once in a while, very rarely, that does not work for whatever reason. It's so screwed up.
That is a very good point that we need to make mention of. If you get a phone with a non-removable battery, you better. I know reading the manual sucks. But read the manual at least to the point where you learn how to soft reset it with the hardware key, because the Lumia 900 did that to me. Like when I had it for like a day, and it just sat there showing me the time in the upper right corner and nothing else, and I couldn't do anything because I was out on the town and it was my first Windows Phone device in about 6 months, and I was like, crap, I don't remember how to soft reset this thing, and I can't Google it on account of my phone doesn't work. So
long live the soft reset home.
Yeah. And I think that's a wonderful place to go out. Long live the soft reset whole functionality, whatever. Jaime, and there it is. Jaime, thank you for being with us today. This was awesome. It was our first 4-person Pocketnow Weekly, and it was awesome to have you here for 007.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Guys, before we wrap up here, Tony or Brandon, any final thoughts?
Nope.
Really quick. I think 3 podcasts ago, we talked about this hidden button on the Nexus 7. If you take off the back, there's a 4th button under the power button that says reset beneath it. Well, that button actually doesn't do anything. So I was prepared to make a video. I was going to get my Dremel out and make this like cool new age soft reset button, but it for whatever reason it just doesn't work. Pressing it for 2 seconds, 10 seconds, 120 seconds. I tried that. It doesn't work. So never mind.
Wow. That's a sad correction. We'll find more hidden buttons on boards in the future, right?
Yes, that's right.
All right. Well, everyone, that wraps it up for this episode of the Pocketnow Weekly. Feel free to throw a tweet our way. I'm always and forever tweeting at Captain2Phones. It's Captain the number 2 Phones. Brandon Miniman is at Brandon Miniman. Tony over there is at Anton Dinaja. ANTONDNAGY, and Jaime is at Jaime_Rivera. JAIME_RIVERA. For those of you lucky enough to be following Joe Levi, the Android guy, you already know about his hilarious live tweets of the podcast. Those of you who don't know about that should follow him at Joe Levi, JOELEVI. You can also follow Pocketnow's official Twitter account at Pocketnow Tweets, as well as on Facebook at facebook.com/PocketNow. You can search for us on Google+. And please leave us a review if you like the podcast on iTunes or Zune. If you like the podcast, if you don't like the podcast, please stay silent. Finally, if you have a topic or a question or suggestion for the podcast, or if you just want to say hi, you can email us at podcast@pocketnow.com. Everyone, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.